Hello, Mr. Rudy. I'm glad that we have you on air here in Serbia. So
Yes.
let us start from the beginning. How do you see the situation in Western Balkans, having in mind that you've decided to expand your business here? Is this a good time for journalism?
Slobodan, good question. First of all, I want to thank you for having me on. I really appreciate your interest in Newsmax, Adria, in the United States and global news and important journalism. We are all in this world together. I think all peoples in the world would like peace and freedom. And Newsmax has been known as an American news brand, television and digital media property. But we also are a global news brand. People all over the world tune into Newsmax for what is happening in the United States and around the globe. And I am very honored that the United Group has taken an interest in Newsmax, and we are in a venture together, and that the chairman of United, Dragan Shulak, has seen to the importance of a news channel that is both fair, balanced, and very informative for the people of the Balkans and Serbia and the rest of the region.
In the Western media, it is common to say that Western Balkans is a fragile region. So can you share some thoughts about that with us and how to practice proper journalism in that sense?
Well, the region is a very important region. It's long been considered in our textbooks in America, in our school books, as the crossroads of Europe and the transit point between East and West. It's actually a collision point, right? Because you have the Christian world and the Muslim world meets. You have Russia and the interests of the East meeting with the Western Europe there in that same region. And I guess whenever you have those points, you'll have both great diversity and interest and cultural interest, but you'll also have confrontation. You'll have problems. The American people, I think, are very see the Balkans as countries and Serbia as allies of the United States, as countries that we want to be close with. President Trump, he has been a friend of mine for over 20 years. He sees the importance of these countries. And in fact, he has a very particular personal interest in the region. As you know, his wife comes from a country in the region, Slovenia. And he had married a European woman from the Czech Republic before that. So he's very interested in that region, and he knows it's very important. And we have a lot of Americans that came here as immigrants from those countries. You just have to go to New York or Chicago to meet people from Serbia or Montenegro or Albania or Bosnia. So I think it's a very important place for us, and we're very glad that Newsmax's brand and journalism is going to be part of the culture and the fabric of society there.
Now, when you've mentioned Mr. Trump, audience here is eager to know what is going to happen next weekend. Mr. Grenell has scheduled meeting in the White House with Mr. Vučić and Mr. Tači. Can you share maybe more information about that event?
I think Rick Grenell, Ambassador Grenell, is the most important person in Trump's foreign policy after Secretary Pompeo. He was not only the ambassador to the most important country in Europe, Germany. He was then made special envoy, as you know, to deal with the Serbia situation in Bosnia. And the very fact that the president is taking this meeting, he doesn't meet with many leaders of countries all over the world. He does certain countries every year, but not everybody gets a personal meeting. So this is a sign, again, of the importance. Rick Grenell is a great friend of mine as well. And before he went into the Trump government, he was an advisor to Newsmax, and he has a very close relationship with Newsmax. In fact, he was just on our programs last week, and I think we will have him on some of your programs going forward, I'm sure, because it's a very important subject. And I'm hoping that the president is a really great negotiator, and I know that everybody wants a negotiated peace and in that region. And so this is the man that can deliver. He has a personal interest through his family B, he knows the area and he's assigned some of his top people there. So I think there's a very strong interest in this, and I have a lot of hope that something good will come out of it.
Does it mean that Treći and Vučić will meet Mr. Trump at White House?
Well, I don't know all of the particulars, but I think that the very fact that there's a meeting in Washington with Rick Grenell, and I think that could be very, very positive. I'm going to have to defer to the U.S. government on what the actual protocols of the meeting are.
From your perspective, as a leader of important media organization, is there a possibility for closing the deal and finishing the conflict under the U.S. government sponsorship during this year?
I think if you look at most of the big conflicts around the world that have been fixed and that have become peaceful, it's because of American intervention. And I think the president obviously has a very high interest that he put Rick Grenell in charge of this. And so the very fact that that's underway and that there are meetings taking place in Washington and that he has a personal interest in it, I think that's all going to be very positive. Can I predict that something will happen in the next year? I would have gone into the business of horoscopes and astrology if I could have done that. Unfortunately, I'm in journalism, so I can only tell you what I think what the forces look like and the people involved, their backgrounds.
On the other hand, can we say that through this collaboration, we're going to have exclusively possibility to have Mr. Grenell on air here in Newsmax area, or even more, Mr. Trump?
Well, I can't promise because they're government officials, but we would certainly make every effort. President Trump just did an interview with Newsmax for about a half hour last week. We have his former press secretary, a man named Sean Spicer, is one of the hosts on Newsmax in the United States. And the president invited him to the White House. They had a very lengthy conversation on a number of issues. And of course, Rick Grenell has been on Newsmax many, many times. So you will be part of our news organization, and Newsmax Adria will draw upon those interviews, and we're very much looking forward to that relationship.
For the end, please, do you have any specific message to the audience in Serbia?
Well, you know, America, Abraham Lincoln said America was the last great hope of the whole world. And I think by that he meant we were an example to the rest of the world, that we didn't tell the world what to do, we didn't police the world. It's not our job to create peace between countries. We can only help promote that. But America has been a very successful democracy because of our Constitution and our freedoms. And the First Amendment, which we have a thing called the Bill of Rights at the end of our Constitution, of the 10 most important freedoms our founding fathers laid out. And the very first freedom is the freedom of press. And the reason why they put the freedom of press there is because that is the foundation of all other freedoms. An informed people, an informed citizenry, an informed democracy is a very powerful democracy. We're not always perfect, we make mistakes, but if we see the information and the news tells us we're doing something wrong, we can correct course. We're going through a tremendous news period in this country with a racial incident, the murder of a black man in Minneapolis. But the American people saw that information, they saw the video, and they're making reforms and corrections here. And I think that's the importance that we can share with Newsmax Adria, that the democracy is too important to be left just to the government. It's important for us to play a role in reporting the facts.
Mr. Rudy, thank you for this interview, and I hope that we're going to meet here in Belgrade very soon.
I look forward to it.
Have a nice day.